Hi everyone, this is your host and friend Priyanka Mahankali, and welcome to the Early Career Podcast. We are at episode 4 now on our EQ Thursdays, and so today's topic is on the subject of interviews and interviewing. So you might be wondering why this is a topic within our EQ episode and not our the IQ Tuesdays. But the reason that I chose to have the topic of interviews be on our EQ part of the episode is because um, interviewing really, people think of interviewing to be uh, something related to a skill set. Okay, I need to have these skills. This is the job description, and then these are the skills I need to have. And and if I don't meet those skills in the interview, then I won't get this job, right? And I'm here to say that from the many years of experience that I've had, both being interviewed and also interviewing people at Amazon, I can safely say now, and with a lot more assurance, I can say that interviewing is a mindset. When you are when you are the one being interviewed, it's very important to have the right mindset. Most importantly, have the right kind of EQ to actually showcase your full self, but more than your full self, your best self to the interviewer, and for them to really understand who you are, not just what you bring, but also who you are. Because companies nowadays are looking for not just a job description, they're also looking for people who are driven, who are passionate, who are, human, who feel like human and who have empathy. Hopefully, people who have some understanding of working with other people. How are you a collaborative person? Are you someone that can take on tasks? Are you someone that can delegate tasks as well? Just so many different kinds of qualities that are not tangible, that are not hard skills, are important. And that's why I decided to put interviewing as an EQ episode and not an IQ one, which is on Tuesdays, by the way. So, coming or getting started, let's talk about the mindset. First of all, make sure that you feel like your best self. And sometimes the day before an interview, or even during the right an hour before the interview, you're like really nervous and scared, and heart rate is very high. And that happens to everybody, by the way. It's not just you. It happens to the most competent of people. But what's interesting is the most the people who really have confidence in their skill sets and their abilities, and really who they are as people, that confidence can really override the level of nerves that you might have. I mean, even me being someone who is generally confident, I still feel very nervous, and my heart rate increases and things like that, right? Which is a normal. It also can mean that you really care about the interview. So think of the nerves and the nervousness as a sign or an indication that it's just something that you really care about. If it's something that you care about and you want, then your body produces that kind of anxiety and that kind of nervousness because you want something and you're hoping that you get it, right? So it's totally okay to have those nerves, but there is something that I've heard people say, and it's something I do too. So a day before the interview or an hour before the interview, there's a technique called box breathing. It basically just means that you um, breathe in for 8 seconds. Or no, well, not 8 seconds. Breathe in, count to eight and breathe in. Hold for 8 counts. Breathe out for 8 counts. And then hold again for 8 counts. And that creates a mental model of a box. So that's called box breathing. That's one way. So breath work in general is one way that you can actually really, really calm yourself down. You won't believe how effective it can be. And I'm not saying this simply. I've tried it out. I do it myself all the time. And it's not time consuming, right? You do maybe 3 4 sets of breaths, and that's pretty much it. Like, you feel a whole lot better because you're kind of telling your nervous system, okay, calm down. I get that you're concerned about me, but I need you to calm down. And so when you regulate your breath, automatically your nervous system starts to calm down, and that's when the logical part of your brain kicks in, because you're reducing your emotional part of your emotions. And then that's when you can start really feeling more grounded, more um, aware of who you are. You can remember who you are, because that's what you have to show in the interview, is who you really are. And there are some ways and there are some techniques where um, that can really help in making you very unique. And so I'm going to share some of those techniques. So um, let's start off with the very first interaction, right? Like the minute you get on the call. Uh, Actually, let's start with the scenario where you're meeting the interviewer in person, and then let's talk about the virtual aspect. So if you're meeting an interviewer in person, or really anyone that you're networking with, this can apply to anyone that you're meeting in a social event, in a networking event. But let's specifically talk about an interviewer. When you meet with them, first of all, make sure you remember their name, you know their name, so that when you meet with them, first thing, before you even shake hand, make eye contact. Make eye contact with them. And it's not like just you look up and look down. No, you like look up, and then like you keep looking, very confidently, with like, kind of like strong, but humble, sort of vision. So just look up, and then the second next thing you do is shake hands with them, right? And when you shake hands with them, um, you need the handshake to be firm. It's not, I've seen people who will just be like, hey, and then like they're barely even holding your hand. No, hold the person's hand fully, and literally like do this, like one and two, you know. Sometimes I even go like a three, if you've started the conversation of like, how are you doing? I don't just leave the hand, because the psychologically, right, the longer you're holding the other person's hand, it communicates to the other person, again, subconsciously, very psychologically, that you are a very confident person, that you're not scared to hold someone's hand, you know. And I can tell from the way someone shakes my hand, I can tell if they're just a confident person. They know who they are. They believe in themselves. They have a lot to offer to the table. And then I start feeling more interest to learn about them. So if your handshake is weak, like this, or you're barely even holding the other person's hand, then it shows your lack of trust in your own abilities. It's very subconscious, but it's real, and it is how people can initially determine who you are as a person. So strong handshake, maybe shake it a couple of times. It should almost feel like a jolt for the other person, like, go like this, so like their arm actually moves, and that's also a very deep psychological thing, that when you shake someone's arm and their arm like moves, they're also like, whoa, okay, wow, okay, so it's like gives this psychological sense of um, strength in a way, and power that you're bringing to the conversation, like this powerfulness about you. So make eye contact, and keep the eye contact as you're shaking their hand, and then the next thing you do is go, um, hey Melissa, how are you doing? And if they kind of leave your hand at that point, then you can initiate whatever that may be. But when you're leaving the hand, don't just go like that, like, kind of gradually move, because you want to make the atmosphere feel very grounded. You don't want to be like quick as a cat, like, okay, done this, okay. No, like, hey Melissa, how are you doing? And then just, yeah, so what's going on? Like, you kind of like be smooth about it. And when you're smooth, it really shows how confident you are, how grounded you are, and how much you don't really care about this interview, in a good way, in the sense that you care, but you also want to see if it's a good fit for you, you know and we'll get to that part. But really, interviews, if you think about it, it's about, you are the one leading that interview, even though you are the one being interviewed, because you are the one offering your valuable time of your life to do a job for this company, to fulfill some aspect of this company's goals, right? Of course, they are paying you for that, but you're also you're putting your life, your time, your 40 hours a week at the very least into this company, precious time of your life that you could be doing something else. So you have to go in fundamentally with that mindset of, yeah, you know what? I'm not the one that wants this job. Yes, I want this job, but I also want to make sure that it's a good fit for me, not just for them, but it's a good fit for me. And then when I carry that attitude, it shows that I'm confident, and I like, hey, I'm here to play the game, in the sense that I'm also going to see if this is a good fit for me. So you need to impress me. Hey, interviewer, you need to impress me too. It's not just me impressing you. So it's not, then you're kind of creating a power dynamic of a two-way street where you're not just some inferior person sitting there and like asking, please give me the job. No, you're the one leading that interview in some sense by saying, yeah, you know what? I'm here. Like, you can ask me questions to see if I'm a good fit for you, but I'm also going to evaluate if you're a good fit for me. And of course, you don't have to say that very explicitly in the beginning, but it's the vibe, it's the energy. It's like, yeah, I'm here, you know, I'm here, and this is my interview, and this is my time, and yeah, feel free to ask whatever you want to ask me. So that's the vibe that you want to carry, the energy you want to carry. And even when you carry that energy, it just radiates, it just shows. And I'm not saying this in some like weird in some weird way. I'm actually saying this because it is real. Energy can be seen, your lack of self-confidence can be seen by the interviewer. Your level of confidence also can be seen. It can be seen if you're trying to hide something and you're trying to come off as somebody else. Everything is something that can be seen by an interviewer. So you want to make sure that you bring your best authentic self to the table, and that's what I mean by that. And that's why interviewing is more of preparation from your mind, from your mindset, breath work, meditation, which I talked about in our previous video, in our previous episode 2, where I did talk about meditation and exploring that path. Because it's, what is it? It's just sitting with yourself for 10 minutes, right? How hard should that be? I know it is hard, but I'm trying to oversimplify it so that it doesn't feel that hard for you to do. Coming back to interviewing, you are interviewing the interviewer. Think of it like that. And that's how you can kind of take control, not in a sense where you're the one asking all the questions. No, no, no. You are interviewing the interviewer, and you are taking control from your mind controlling you. So you feel like now you are taking control of the situation, so that your mind stops controlling you and overpowering you with these emotions that then can completely ruin the interview. So that's why it's important to come with a mindset of leading. And if any role today now requires some form of leadership in so many different ways, and that's even what an interviewer is looking for. They are looking to see if you are capable of leading, and one way to show that is in your demeanor and in the way you present yourself and the way you bring yourself. So going back to our initial handshake and the eye contact and all of that, if you are now in a virtual setting, we talked about a physical setting where you can see the person, you can handshake with them, right? But if you are in a virtual setting, you get on the call, and the minute you do, you like have a smiling face, smile. It's very important in a physical setting or a virtual setting. Smile really goes a long way because it creates fundamental human connection before you even start talking. So make sure that you smile and say, "Hey, Melissa, how are you doing?" And start with that energy of like strength. And when you ask the question of how are you doing, then they're going to answer. They're going to say something like, yeah, I'm doing good, how about you? Or they're a little bit more friendlier, they might actually elaborate saying, oh yeah, today has been a crazy day. Yeah, I had to drop my kids to the school, and And that's actually how one way to know if the other person is a little bit laid back, if the other person kind of um, is empathetic. It's again very psychological. So then I kind of know from their answer if how to kind of play out the rest of the interview as well. um, and also I can get a sense of how formal, or yeah, how formal this interview is going to sound or look like. And so when, if they say something like, yeah, fine, how are you doing, then it feels, it can start to feel a little bit transactional, right? And you want to make the interview feel like a conversation, not that someone's sitting there asking you questions. And so in most cases, not all, in most cases, if you start creating a friendly sort of conversational vibe to the interviewer, if you bring that conversational vibe to the interviewer, then they'll start to relax too a bit, and then they'll start be like, they also might be like, huh, okay, I guess I'm just gonna be, you know, more conversational back, because they also want to be a good person. They don't want to. Most interviewers want to are good people, and they actually genuinely want to um, create a good interview experience for you as a candidate who they are looking to hire potentially, right? And so they are also looking, it's not just you who's impressing them, they're also impressing you, because they also are from a company that may have values such as, we want to make sure that our candidates feel welcome, feel warm, um, that they, because when you're interviewing for a company, from the way the interviewer interviews you can get a very strong sense of the company culture as well, right? So sometimes if people are too transactional, which is something I personally don't like that much, I feel like it's best when people are more conversational. Even at Amazon, when I used to take interviews, all the time I would be very conversational. I would start off, and from an interviewer's perspective, I would always start off with something very casual. I would say like, hey, how are you doing? And if they just said fine, how are you, then just to make them realize that I actually want it to be friendly, I will start saying something very basic about my life. I'll start like talking something about my life, like, oh, yeah, today, oh my God, like it sucked, or, it was a really bad day. Or maybe I'll say something like, yeah, I was really trying to download this app on my phone, and it was just not working. I don't know what's, sometimes technology can be hard. Like, I'll just say something to like kind of minimize the uneasiness and the stressful environment that the candidate might be already coming in with, the expectation of the interview being like that. So either the interviewer does that, or if the interview doesn't create that environment of ease from the get go, then you want to create that environment, or you want to initiate that by, when the question is asked back to you, how are you doing, then you can say something like, yeah, I've been very, very excited. You can even say something like this: I've been very excited for this interview because I this is a role that I really like, and I've been looking forward to something like this come my way. And so I was, really excited. So yeah, I've been having a good day so far. And when you say you're excited about this interview, that actually shows again confidence. You're not nervous. You're actually looking forward to this. And that gives the interviewer a sense of, huh, okay, this person, seems pretty confident in themselves, and they're really looking forward to this. Okay. Because if you're actually nervous and you're trying to like hold yourself back, then you're not going to say something like, I'm looking forward to this, right? Naturally, that's your body's response. And that's why this comes back to our mindset of before prep for the interview. The mindset matters, and bringing that confidence, so that when you're in the interview, you're actually saying things like, yeah, I was looking forward to this, and I'm happy we are talking, or I'm happy. And I also say things like, oh, I'm so glad that we're actually finally connecting after whatever, 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever the time frame was. And and then it kind of becomes a little bit more empathetic. The mood of the interview becomes more empathetic and more like humanly, if that's even a word. But um yeah, and so that's step one when you start off. And the reason why I'm focusing so much on this very first like 5 seconds is because there's like this sort of 5 to 10 second rule, I would say. I almost call it like a 10-second rule, where if the first few seconds of the meeting, of the interview, is becoming friendlier, starts off friendly, then overall the whole conversation kind of eases out and it's more friendly and it's conversational. And if the first 10 seconds are very transactional, start of like, okay, how are you doing? I'm fine. Okay, how are you doing? I'm also fine. And it's like really like there's no emotion, there's no empathy, then I mean, for one, I would fault the interviewer for not creating a much more better environment for the candidate to feel at ease. But two, then it's going to, sometimes no matter how much you try to initiate a friendly sort of opener, the interviewer might still be the same. And so that's why I said earlier, in most cases, if you kind of start continue friendly or you kind of respond in a more empathetic way, um, then the interviewer also starts kind of uh, reciprocating that same energy back. But some people are just not like that, but most people are. I think most interviewers are. Of course, there are some interviews, there'll always be edge cases and people who just don't know how to create an empathetic environment, um, and they don't see an interview as a conversation truly for them to understand who the candidate is. And I think, I mean, this is a message for all interviewers on behalf of all interviewees or candidates, that please, if you're watching this, please, this is not a test that you're giving a candidate. This is a way that the candidate needs to, like, your job as an interviewer is to make a candidate feel like their full self, and really open up, because they might have a lot of skills that you might be looking for in your team, but you won't be able to see it because you've not created a conducive, positive environment for them to open up. And that is on the interviewer. So if you are listening and you are an interviewer, please make sure that your candidate feels comfortable. And uh, there are cues, verbal and non-verbal cues, from which you can determine that. And you can even call it out, saying, hey, I want to keep this very conversational. I just want to know you, so please, let's just have a chat, right? Like, this is more of a chat to just get to know you. And don't just say this, because I know I've seen some interviews who'll say this, and then they'll start off really transactional. They'll say that, hey, Priyanka, I want to keep this interview very conversational, etc. And I'll be like, oh, okay, great. And then the remaining interview will be so not conversational. I'm like, okay, seems like what you said and what you're doing are two completely different things. I don't really think that you know what it is like to be truly conversational. So interviewers, make sure that you're creating a good, positive, encouraging environment for your candidates, because it's not a test for them, it's also a test for you. And for candidates who are interviewing, please try to view an interview as a positive experience, where you have one more place where your voice is being heard, where you are able to share your voice. So many people in this world don't have the opportunity to make themselves be heard, and you have it. You're given this interview, given this chance to show the best of you, right? So take full advantage of this chance, right? Now, coming excuse me, see, sorry, actually, my left eye is watering a little bit, because when I was putting some mascara today for this video to just look presentable, and I just like poked the mascara stick in my eye, so now it's all, yeah, watery, and I guess I can be very, very clumsy, so apologies for that. But coming back to interviews, so we talked about the handshake, we talked about the initial 10-second, start off with, how are you doing? I'm good. How are you doing? I'm also good. And then you can share a little bit as an opener, like, yeah, I've been having a busy day, or I'm excited for this interview, or whatever, right? From that, now the next thing is, they'll ask you, hey, tell me about yourself. But in case they don't ask that just yet, which they usually do, and make sure you prepare for that question, which is, tell me about yourself. And it might initially feel very intimidating, because you're like, oh my god, now where do I start? What do I tell the person? Like, which part of myself should I start from first, right? And we will cover we'll do another episode specifically on the question of how do you answer tell me about yourself in the best way possible. But just in general, when you're asked that question, don't feel like you're being put on the spot, because that's the initial reaction that our body makes us or puts us into. And then we start to feel like all freaked out, and then it comes out all wrong, and then you're like, what, I had planned this to go so well, and this is how it came out, right? Make sure you practice, for sure. Make sure you go in front of the mirror and practice what you're going to say when they ask you, tell me about yourself. But anyway, if the interviewer doesn't start by asking that question, take the opportunity to lead this interview by saying, hey, so let me start by introducing myself. If they don't ask you, you ask for it, or you tell that you volunteer to introduce yourself. Or you can say, hey, can we start by me introducing myself, and then you can introduce yourself after that. Something like that, so that it gives them a sense of, oh wow, okay, so she seems to have like control over this meeting and command over the interview, which are actually skills that they might be looking for in their team. Someone who has leadership skills, someone who has empathy, someone who really has, can create an influence and create a strong presence. And those things are things that come from the interviews assess from, these little tidbits like this. It's not just in like, oh, I've led teams and I've built this project and built this product. And no, it's not just those things. It's also these things which are sometimes the difference between a hire and a rejection, right? Because I myself have been in hiring. I've interviewed candidates, so of course I've been part of accepting or hiring or rejecting the candidate. And sometimes I will choose the candidate that, like, when there's two candidates who have somewhat equal comparable technical skills, I'll choose the candidate that was more memorable, someone who had this strong sense of self, this strong presence, and they were able to convince me about something. And even if they didn't know about something, they didn't know the answer to something, they were very confident about that. And that's the kind of candidate I want for, in my team or in the company, or to be hired generally, because that's the kind of person that I want to see in front of customers when they are actually talking to customers externally, for them to have a strong command over our products and services and things like that. So you see how all of these small things translate into really big results and outcomes. And that's why I'm not just here to give you some like philosophical or just like motivational. I'm not here to just give a motivational speech. I'm giving you very tangible advice, suggestions that you can consider to think about an interview, think about introducing yourself, and all of those things. So as we're talking about, where were we? We're talking about the tell me about yourself aspect, right? So you ask for yourself to be introduced, and then when you're done introducing yourself, you can also say, hey, do you want to go next, or do you want to introduce yourself? And then they'll say, yeah, sure, of course. And then they'll introduce yourself, and then after that you can actually start or continue the conversation by saying, by catching something from what they introduced, to find like either some similarity that you may have had with them. Maybe they were raised in the same country that you were raised in, or maybe like they said, talked about some specific type of experience that you had, or maybe some technology that they worked on that you're interested in working on. You can catch on something. I'm sure you can find something. I always find something. And then I'll be like, hey, yeah, thanks for sharing. And I would further add saying, what you mentioned about this was very interesting because of so and so. So that also again continues to show the interviewer that you have command over the interview. You have strong presence, you have a lot of confidence, you're actually engaging them. And this is how you lead an interview, right? This is how you lead an interview. So we are done with introductions. The next Some of the next set of questions will happen where the interviewer will say something on the lines of, okay, so like, can you tell me a school project that you worked on? If you're like getting into your very first job, right, it would be something like a school project or an internship or something. and start off. And when you start talking about a project, please make sure that it's in what we call as a STAR format. STAR: situation, task, action, and result. It has to follow that structure. If your answers are not structured, especially your examples of school projects or internships, or if you're already in the workforce, then work projects, work experience, if they are not in a structured format, it shows your lack of clarity of thought and your lack of being able to tell a story. Storytelling is so important, and we will dive deeper into that because there are so many elements of storytelling that I want to share with you in the future episodes. And we will definitely dive into how do you tie emotions to a story to make it more impactful than it just being, okay, I did this and then this was the result and this was the outcome, and with this we achieved this much. That's not memorable enough. One more thing: in the results, when you are talking about a result, make sure that the result is somewhat tangible, meaning that you could say, even if it's a school project, and of course it, then at that point it's not something where you can say, okay, this project impacted these many customers and so, right? Because it's a school project. But you could say something on the lines of, this project was based on this IoT service, and or this IoT set of services. And if this solution were to be implemented in the by certain kinds of companies or certain kinds of industries, or tech companies, whatever that may be, then it has the potential to bring this much cost efficiency or operational efficiency or some value. So, and you can also quantify that value in a percentage, saying, okay, it will either bring 10x efficiencies, more efficiencies to the system, or it will bring down the cost by 60%, or it will bring down the, or it will improve the product by so and so percent. So either a percentage or something x. So 10x, 5x, 2x means 2x means two times of something. 1x means one time. 5x means five times of something, right? So you can come up with some hypothesis, even if it may not be exactly true or accurate. The only reason being that it's not like you're lying, but you're trying to show the interviewer that you are capable of understanding and coming up with tangible metrics around success and outcomes, which is part of the result in STAR, so that the interview can see you being in this role, where that role also requires you to come up with outcomes, deliver real results, right? Because that's very important today in the workforce, people who can really deliver results, and for the results to be tangible enough. They just want to know if you understand the concept of tangibility. And so if it's a school project, you can talk in hypothesis, and if it's a real project, then you can actually talk in real with some factual information. And if you don't have that, you can still say that I don't have that at this point, but if we were talking about tangible outcomes, then here is my hypothesis of, or assumptions of, the on the metrics of so and so, based on some other assumptions that you can make. So you can create some assumptions on the fly. Don't feel afraid to do so. Just make sure that you understand what the interviewer is asking of you, and make sure that all your examples have some sort of tangible, either metrics based on hypothesis, assumptions, or reality, something. So with that, I'm going to conclude this video. In the next video, we will continue talking about the same topic of interviews. How are you going to conduct yourself as you go through the rest of this interview? So I think we finished probably roughly like 10, 12 minutes of an interview. We're going to cover some more concepts around how do you conduct yourself as you're answering questions, and how do you continue to lead until the end. And what very important is how you leave the interview. So what are you going to conclude with, and what are you going to ask of the interviewer as you are closing the interview? So with that, thank you so much. Hopefully this was helpful. There's a lot of different aspects I want to bring into this podcast, especially with respect to interviewing, mentoring, and networking. And so you will see the future episodes EQ Thursdays. Please let me know what you're struggling with in the comments, and I'm very happy to help you by creating future content on that. With that, thank you so much for your time, and I will see you next Tuesday on our EQ Tuesdays. And this time, we will have a special guest who will share their expertise and knowledge on all things AI that you may actually use in some of your school projects. So, they will share some use cases that you might be able to actually take and use for your school projects or for your early career projects, maybe in the workforce. How can you actually build some productivity based solutions for your own team and for your maybe extended team and things like that within your own company to add value within the realm of AI? But also, he will share some insights on some, how different industries are adopting AI for you to get some worldly knowledge and exposure on that side as well. So stay tuned, and I will see you next Tuesday on our regularly scheduled IQ Tuesdays. Until then, stay healthy, stay passionate, and stay brave. You're going to do this, okay? You're going to make it. And if you have an interview coming up, good luck. Just enjoy. I know it's harder, easier said than done, but just truly enjoy. Just be yourself, smile, laugh. Half the time I'm just making jokes because, it's like, yeah, I'm a funny person. I mean, maybe not to you, but to me in my head, I'm funny. So laugh, have fun, and you'll see the difference in how others treat you when you start laughing and smiling and you take yourself less seriously. Good luck, and I will see you soon. Bye.